Yo, what's going on, YouTube? And welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte. Guys, we're taking a look today at the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I was listening the other day to TSN. They were talking about the Maple Leafs and their whole situation with John Tavares, Lou Lamoriello, Kyle Dubas. Those three names seem to be coming up recently in Toronto. And we're going to be looking at let's just be honest. If the Leafs had kept Lou Lamoriello as the general manager, where might the Leafs be right now? And we'll be looking at that in this video. Guys, leave your thoughts in the comment section down below because I really do appreciate that. I like you guys talking to each other about this. And I know this video may get some attention because there are a lot of Leaf fans out there that want to, kind of ask the question, how different would this Leafs team be right now with Lou still in the managerial spot? So we're going to go back in time to when Lou Lamoriello started his career as a general manager back in 1987. Now remember, the New Jersey Devils had come over from the Colorado Rockies all the way to New Jersey, and they were in shambles. I mean, this was an organization that was on the verge of moving again, kind of like the New York Nets, but at the time the New Jersey Nets just weren't able to find a fan base, any stability, and quite honestly, not much success. And that all changed in April of 1987 for the New Jersey Devils when Lou Lamoriello had come in and pretty much took over the hockey universe and kind of changed the way we saw managers run things in the NHL. Lou Lamoriello came in and completely rebuilt the New Jersey Devils. You look at what he did in the 28 years that he was there with the New Jersey Devils, and it's quite spectacular. 3 Stanley Cups in the late 90s and the early 2000s with the New Jersey Devils, and has built a legacy of success. Look at the Hall of Famers that have come through New Jersey since Lou Lamoriello was there. Martin Brodeur. You're looking at a guy like Ken Danico. I mean, he has really turned things. Scott Stevens. That was all Lou Lamoriello. And again, there's other guys that are a part of that, but Lou Lamoriello had built the blueprint for what this team was going to do, and he had the success behind him. Now, he went to the Stanley Cup Finals in 1995. That's when he won his first cup with the Devils. And then he won another cup in 2000. He lost in 2001, but then in 2003, they once again won the Stanley Cup. Now, Lou Lamoriello wanted to take 3 teams in particular and build his own blueprint for what he wanted to see. He wanted to build it from the Green Bay Packers, the New York Yankees, and the Montreal Canadiens. That was, he was going to use different aspects from all 3 of those franchises that were very successful and turn it into a pretty much a unusual corporate culture. So basically, if you don't know, Lou Lamoriello has certain rules where rookies have to take in their entry-level contracts. They can't, they don't sign signing bonuses. He has different weird quirks where like defensemen have to have low numbers, goaltenders have to have numbers between 30 and 45. Just different stuff like that. It sounds weird, but it's just tradition. Forwards have to have low numbers like we saw with the Islanders. Anthony Beauvillier had number 72. He had to change it to number 18 when Lou came in. We saw, who else? Did Adam Pelech? I think Adam Pelech changed his number. He was like 60-something, and he ends up becoming number 3. So there were a couple guys that had happened to. So that was, again, an interesting point. Now, we also made a rule where guys couldn't wear number 13, which now with the Islanders, Matt Barzal, it seems like he's let loose a little bit in that regard. No facial hair during the regular season, just certain things about Lou Lamoriello that were quite odd from the rest of the league. But you look at the success that he's had with that, and it's really worked. He has the idea of it's a team mentality. There's no one big name player. There's no superstar player. Everybody plays as a team. It's not the number on the back. It's the crest on the front. And that has really worked for Lou. And it seems to be continuing to work right now with the Islanders. And then it brings up the question of once he left the New Jersey Devils in 2015, he came into Toronto. So now we're going back to the Leafs a little bit. Now you have that little context. So he comes into Toronto, has been a mess. This is an organization that at that point hadn't seen a Stanley Cup playoff second round in over a decade. And this is a team that had just come off defeat after defeat against the Boston Bruins. And they just weren't able to get it done. So Lou was supposed to come in and get this team rebuilt and eventually back into the Stanley Cup playoffs and maybe at some point win a Stanley Cup. Now, there was one interesting point that kind of made things a little bit tough here with Lou, because Lou, coming into this job, Brendan Shanahan, which, quite funny enough, in 1987 was the first pick that Lou had, his first draft pick that he selected ever as a general manager was Brendan Shanahan. So the Shanahan plan was completely in works now. Lou Lamoriello comes in, and his heir to the throne, who would be his assistant general manager, Kyle Dubas, was going to be the heir to the throne as the next general manager in Toronto, but he would learn some things under Lou Lamoriello. So Lou was the general manager, and they had drafted a lot of players, guys like William Nylander, Mitch Marner, and they really started to build this team from the ground up. Lou Lamoriello had acquired guys like Matt Martin from the New York Islanders. He had brought in guys like Leo Komarov and made the most out of those players. Brought in Freddie Anderson to be the next starting goaltender in Toronto. And it seemed like this team was back on the rise. And then, then Kyle Dubas started getting offers from other teams about potentially becoming a new general manager somewhere else. So in 2018... the Toronto Maple Leafs had decided that Lou had made a couple of mistakes, specifically his situation with, the Freddie Anderson trade was maybe looking okay. There was also a lot of talk about the Komarov contract he had gave, bringing in Matt Martin. Those guys really weren't playing that well, which, quite fittingly enough, with the Islanders, they're playing quite well. The Nikita Zaitsev contract, which was abysmal. And that seemed to be a problem. He had signed Dion Phaneuf and stuff like that. And you were seeing there was some problems there under Lou Lamoriello. And the fan base was starting to get to a point where, all right, maybe we should bring in the young guy, Kyle Dubas, before we lose Dubas and Lamoriello at some point, and then we have nobody. So they figured, all right, we'll bring Lou. He'll become the president of the team, which pretty much knocks him out of his general manager spot. And it's Kyle Dubas' team to run from here on out. Now, there's only one problem with that. Now, Lou Lamoriello didn't really like the idea of being the second guy at the wheel. He wanted to be the number one guy. So just so happened to be, at around that time, the New York Islanders were changing their ownership and management, as we started to see John Ledecky and Scott Malkin take over Charles Wang's team of the New York Islanders. And this is when the Islanders start talking about building an arena somewhere. They were looking at different locations on Long Island. Ledecky was going down to the fans, asking them what they want in a new arena, where would you want it, stuff like that. And then we start to see things change on Long Island. The Islanders now decide, all right, we're going to bring in Lou Lamoriello. So Lou leaves his president job from the Leafs. The Leafs did not fire Lou Lamoriello. That is something to remember. But they pretty much kicked him out of his management spot. So don't take away all liability here, Shanahan, because you kind of kicked him out yourself, and Lou just took a better opportunity. So Lou becomes the general manager of the Islanders, and Lou cleans out house right away. Kicks out Garth Snow as the general manager. Whoop, you're gone. Doug Weight, terrible, worst defensive team that the Islanders have ever had. One of the worst defensive teams in NHL history. You're gone too. So now the Islanders, Lou Lamoriello appoints himself as the general manager, so he's the vice president and the general manager of the team. And at that point, the coach, which we have seen Lou do all three of those things at once. But again, it's Lou Lamoriello, so nobody's that surprised. Lou Lamoriello, now remember, in 2018, the Washington Capitals had come off winning a Stanley Cup. Ovechkin in the pond at Nationals Park, swimming with the Stanley Cup, shotgunning beers at the stadium, having a good time. All fun and good, right? Barry Trotz was up for a new contract. And the Washington Capitals were like, hey, you know what? You're not worth that money. You just won a Stanley Cup with us, but we're all right. We're going to kick you out. And then Todd Reirden becomes the next head coach of the Washington Capitals, Barry Trotz's former assistant. So Barry Trotz has a little conversations here and there with Lou Lamoriello, and Lou brings in Barry Trotz as the head coach of the New York Islanders. And now you have the framework. You have Lou Lamoriello, John Tavares potentially coming back because he's seeing all these changes, right? Yeah, interesting. And then Barry Trotz comes in. So now you would think, all right, well, now the Islanders have some pretty solid management, right? They have a good general manager who has won championships, and they have Barry Trotz who just won a Stanley Cup. Why would John Tavares not stay with the Islanders? Yeah, exactly. So, the night before July 1st comes, I remember it very vividly. I'm sitting there checking my phone constantly. When are we going to see Tavares sign? Come on, this is a little bit close now. I remember midnight came, and at that point, John Tavares could only get a 7-year deal, which the Islanders had the leverage of an 8th-year deal that any other team couldn't give. Now, July 1st, even if he did re-sign with the Islanders, it would at most be a 7-year deal. So at that point, you could probably figure he would not be returning to the Islanders. And John Tavares was pretty quiet the night before. He was at his house, around the pool. I mean, people were kind of stalking him, which is mad weird, but okay. And then we see him get on the plane, and he's in Toronto. Now, remember, he was in Toronto the whole time. But next morning, July 1st, I remember waking up at noon, and there's a press conference for the Toronto Maple Leafs that they said everybody should show up for. And who's there? Kyle Dubas, Brendan Shanahan, and a number 91 jersey that said John Tavares. And that was it. John Tavares had left the New York Islanders just like that. After that whole regular season, he was pretty quiet, but again, he was saying that he wanted to come back to the Islanders, he wanted to win there, and he packed it right up to Toronto. Okay, whatever. And at that point, you thought, well, the Islanders are screwed. The Islanders just lost their franchise player. Lou Lamoriello got kicked out of Toronto for this young guy, Kyle Dubas, this young up-and-coming general manager. Yeah, the Islanders are pretty much getting the scraps of the league. They bring back Matt Martin and Leo Komarov. They signed him to a big contract. And there was a lot of questions about this team. Robin Lehner, the Islanders signed him from Buffalo. He was having mental issues and couldn't get it done in Buffalo. Buffalo didn't even give him a tender qualifying offer, just let him walk. And we're talking about the Buffalo Sabres here, just letting him walk. And you saw how things changed. And the culture that Lou Lamoriello had built with the Islanders and Barry Trotz, the Islanders had found that success that they were finally looking for. And now, the Leafs, who were parading like they had just won the Stanley Cup because they signed John Tavares, you look 3 years later. 3 years later. Now, at this point in the Islanders-Tampa Bay series, the Islanders have won 6 playoff series in the last 3 years since Lou Lamoriello has come in and John Tavares has left. How many series have the Leafs won since John Tavares came in, or for that matter of the last, 20 years? 13 years. How many playoff series have the Leafs won? That's 0. So then comes the argument, well, who would you rather have? Would you rather have the franchise player in John Tavares, or would you rather have the management and the coaching staff? And I remember saying, that summer when the Islanders lost Tavares, it was disappointing, obviously. That was a gut punch to Islanders fans, pretty much a shot at the Islanders that, I'd rather just lie to you and then just go somewhere else, whatever, that's fine. But now we never would have thought the repercussions of that, because you would have assumed that John Tavares would have success in Toronto. They would win some championships. They had a sick dynamo team. But where's that success? Not there. So then comes the question, Leaf fans, would you rather still have Lou Lamoriello today, or would you rather have John Tavares as your player there? Because at this point, it looks pretty easy. You'd rather have Lou Lamoriello there. And I remember saying, all right, it's disappointing the Islanders lost Lou Lamoriello, but who manages that team? Let's be honest. If John Tavares didn't have this whole contract situation, would the Islanders have fired Garth Snow? And would they have would they have even brought in Lou Lamoriello if this whole contract situation wasn't there for Tavares? It may not have ever happened. Now, I know the Islanders they were at that point where they wanted to bring back Tavares, but they needed to give him a reason to come back. And they gave him every reason. They gave him a new, just won the Stanley Cup head coach, and they gave him a world-class general manager, and he still decided to leave. But I don't think 3 years later, John Tavares would have ever thought that this would be the outcome. Now, again, you can't blame John Tavares, you can't blame Dubas, you can't blame Shanahan, whatever. I mean, let's be honest. You look at that situation, nobody would have thought the Islanders would have done what they did. But at the end of the day, it comes down to management. It comes down to culture, and Lou Lamoriello had that. And now the Leaf fans are in a situation 3 years after signing Mitch Marner, William Nylander, and Austin Matthews to contracts that, let's be honest, Lou Lamoriello would have never signed. Now, this isn't a shot at Kyle Dubas. He's a young general manager at the time. He was in there for less than a year when he had to sign guys like Matthews and Marner. How much do you really expect? Again, that's asking for a lot for a young general manager. But again, if Lou was there, we know that whole situation with Nylander. He sat out most of the season. The Leafs were playing garbage, and he comes in 5 minutes before the Leafs deadline to bring back Nylander before he couldn't play that whole season. The Nylander camp catches Dubas's bluff, and they sign a contract at the last minute, and he gets the deal that he wanted. Now, he was staying over in Sweden. Let's be honest. If it was Lou Lamoriello, he would have said, all right, you stay in Sweden the rest of the year. I'm not signing that contract. But Dubas, he showed his cards. Nylander gets the contract he wanted. But let's be honest, a couple years later, now Nylander has that pressure that he held out. And again, he isn't one of the guys that was a problem during the season for the Leafs. I mean, Nylander did struggle at points, but in the postseason, he did play quite well. Probably the best out of those four guys. Again, Tavares not included because he was injured in Game 1. But again, Marner, who signed a lot of money, making Mike Babcock, again, remember, he took a lot of flack from Mike Babcock that he was too soft. He was a perimeter player, didn't want to get in front of the net, sacrifice the body a little bit, take cross checks in front. He didn't want to do any of that. And now he's getting the repercussions for not being a good playoff performer. You look at the 7 penalties in Mitch Marner's playoff career. All of those penalties in the final 10 minutes, 15 minutes of a game, and they were stick over the glass, or puck over the glass, 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 puck over the glass. All 7 or 8 of his penalties in the Stanley Cup playoffs, no, they haven't been cross-checking or stick lift or whatever, or slashing, high stick, none of that. It was puck over the glass. Now, if you look at that, you could probably make an argument that is, again, maybe being in an uncomfortable environment and maybe being under a little bit too much pressure. And you can make that argument for Mitch Marner, and we've talked about this. Kyle Dubas made a bet that he was going to be the general manager that changed the NHL. I hate to say this, and it's kind of a cliche, but, it should be a copycat league. We've seen this before. Remember when the Bruins won the Cup in 2011, right? They were the big, bad Bruins. What did every team from 2012 to 2014, 2015, 2016, what did all those teams do? They added a ton of size and a ton of grit. Right? Because the Bruins did it in 2011, and it worked. They had Lucic, they had Chara, they had Bergeron, they had all these big boys. And every team after that wanted to follow that equation. And we saw the same thing happen in 2019 when the St. Louis Blues did the exact same thing. A powerful team that just won all their puck battles, and they ended up grinding their way to a Stanley Cup. So the Leafs were creating this new formula that wasn't even proven to work. You're paying guys that aren't proven, and that has always been a big thing. You sign guys from let's say their entry-level contract, right? You have your 3-year entry-level deal, signing bonuses or not, whatever, right? And then the question comes up, well, what do you do after that? Well, you still have to prove yourself, right? Because for the most part, those are your rookie years. You're just learning the ropes. And chances are, if your team isn't very good, you may not even be in the playoffs at that point. So what have you proven? What did Mitch Marner, Austin Matthews, William Nylander took less than those other guys. But what did Matthews and Marner prove that they deserved $11+ million contracts? Or 10.5, whatever. What did Marner take? 10.9? And then Matthews is over 11, right? So what did they do when they signed those contracts to deserve that contract? I'm just being honest. And the fact that they signed for 5-year deals, it's kind of ridiculous. Kyle Dubas may regret that in the future. And again, you can't put all the onus on Dubas. Dubas had the idea that this is the window that the Leafs are going to win. They have a 5-year window, and if they lose Marner, if they lose Matthews, if they lose whatever, in those 5 years, it doesn't matter, as long as they won a Stanley Cup. But they haven't even won a playoff round, and you're already parading in the streets after signing Tavares with cups in your hand. Maybe you thought about that celebration just a little bit too early. So, at the end of the day, would the Leafs be in a better spot with Lou? Let's be honest. Lou was part of the reason that the Marner camp had dug their heels into their contract negotiations with Dubas to begin with. They didn't like the fact that he didn't get a signing bonus as a rookie. And that was a big part of Marner's camp, maybe having a little bit of leverage and saying, listen, we want that money back now. That was part of the contract he signed with Dubas. So if Lou was still there, would there have been those problems? Now, here's the difference between Lou Lamoriello and Kyle Dubas. Lou Lamoriello, you could tell, teams could throw, let's be honest, Mitch Marner could have said to Lou, listen, I'm going to look at offer sheets then, right? And Lou would be like, okay, sign the offer sheet and then we'll worry about it then. But until you sign the offer sheet, why am I going to worry about an offer sheet that's just a theoretical thing? It didn't even happen. That's Lou Lamoriello, and that's what he does. At the end of the day, if they were, let's say the Blue Jackets, if they offered up 13 or 14 for Marner, yeah. And you know what Lou, at the end of the day, knows? He wanted to play for the Leafs anyway. It was just he wanted the best of both worlds. He wanted to play in Toronto and get his money too. You want your cake and you eat it too, you also have to pay the price when you don't produce. And that's what we saw this offseason from Mitch Marner. I like Mitch Marner. I think he's a great player. When the Islanders were rumored to be offer sheeting him, I was on board too. But we're seeing right now, maybe that may have been the worst thing for the Leafs was to sign him for that money. And again, I hope he proves me wrong next year. I hope he proves everybody wrong because he has a lot of pressure on his back going into next season. And so does Matthews. Let's be completely honest, He is the best player on that team. Wins the Maurice Richard for the most goals during the regular season. But again, this is a regular season team that produces. And then in the playoffs, they aren't able to get it done. And just to make you feel a little bit better, Leafs fans, look at the Colorado Avalanche. This is another season where the Avalanche were the best team in the regular season. You have Nathan McKinnon, Gabriel Landeskog, all these good guys, and they get bounced in the third round. So at least they're getting further in the playoffs than the Leafs. But again, they are having the same struggles too of getting it done in the postseason. So it's not just the Leafs. Everybody focuses on the Leafs because they're the mecca of hockey. They're Canada's team, whatever. But at the end of the day, they are not the only team struggling from this. Before Tampa won their cup last year, we were talking about the Lightning for years, a team that couldn't get it done. We were talking about the Capitals. Ovechkin was a good player in the regular season, but couldn't get it done in the playoffs. He gets it done in 2018. So it's a matter of time for the Leafs, hopefully, but hopefully you get it done before Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner's deals are finished. So guys, let me know in the comment section down below, what do you think? Should the Leafs have kept Lou Lamoriello, or are they better off with what they have right now? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And if you guys like what we're doing here at Goal Line Hockey, want to see the latest news around the NHL and more videos just like this one, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and an even bigger subscribe down below. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys next time.